Please don't leave me!
You'll regret this!
Get out!
Before the story begins, please write in the comments section which countries you're watching this story from. And don't forget to like and subscribe so the AR Story channel can continue to grow and present the best stories. The morning sun entered through the half-opened curtains, illuminating the small living room of a modest house in the suburbs. Jesika had already been awake since dawn. She moved quietly, her hands busy preparing breakfast, while her mind was filled with many thoughts about the new chapter of her life. The smell of fried rice mixed with the aroma of freshly brewed tea filled the room, making the house feel warm and alive. Her face looked calm, though deep in her chest there was always a wave of unease every time she thought about her new identity as a wife. She had only been married to Ronaldo for 3 months, but the rhythm of her life had changed completely. Once a young woman surrounded by comfort and luxury, now she chose to hide everything and live simply with the man she loved. Jesika was the only daughter of a successful businessman whose company had spread across many cities. Yet she never revealed that truth. Since the beginning, she wanted Ronaldo to love her sincerely, not because of wealth or status. That was why she agreed when Ronaldo proposed to her modestly, with only a simple ring and a promise spoken with determination. The sound of footsteps made her turn her head. Ronaldo appeared from the bedroom, his hair still messy, his shirt wrinkled, but his face showed the familiar warmth that always made Jesika smile. "Already cooking this early?" Ronaldo asked, rubbing his eyes before sitting at the dining table. Jesika nodded, bringing the plate closer to him. "You have to leave for the office soon, right? I thought I'd make something easy to eat." Ronaldo looked at the food, then at Jesika. "You didn't have to bother like this. I could have just bought something on the way." Jesika smiled faintly. "It's not a bother. I like doing it." Ronaldo's lips curled into a small smile. He reached for the fork, tasting the first bite. Delicious, like always. Jesika watched him with quiet joy. Little things like this strengthened her resolve to continue living a simple life. But deep down, she couldn't deny a small fear. Would this simplicity last forever, especially with Ronaldo's family often showing signs of doubt toward her? The sound of a door opening and heavy footsteps interrupted the quiet moment. Yasmin, Ronaldo's mother, appeared from the hallway. Her face was already hardened with disapproval, even before she opened her mouth. She looked at the breakfast on the table, then at Jesika, her eyes sharp like a blade. "You're already wasting rice this morning?" Yasmin muttered coldly as she walked past. "Why make so much? You think we're rich?" Jesika lowered her head slightly. "It's just a little, mother. Enough for the 3 of us." Yasmin snorted, pulling out a chair and sitting down without looking at Jesika again. "Next time don't waste. People like us must be thrifty. Not like you, already used to living comfortably, don't know the taste of hard work." Ronaldo, sensing the tension, quickly spoke. "Mother, Jesika made it because she cares. Don't be so hard on her." Yasmin glanced at her son. "Of course you'd defend her. But open your eyes, Naldo. Marriage isn't just romance. It's about surviving. And surviving requires money. Does she know how difficult life is?" Jesika forced a small smile, though her chest tightened. She wanted to say she knew very well what money was, that she even had more than Yasmin could imagine. But she swallowed her words. If she revealed her true identity, all of this modest life she had chosen would collapse instantly. After breakfast, Ronaldo left for the office. Jesika stood at the door, waving softly until his figure disappeared at the end of the street. She closed the door, turned, and found Yasmin standing behind her with arms crossed. "You don't have to act so perfect," Yasmin said sharply. "I know women like you. Too good to be true." Jesika met her gaze calmly. "I'm only trying my best, mother. I don't want to trouble anyone." Yasmin turned away. "We'll see how long you last." Jesika stood silently, pressing her chest as if trying to suppress the sting of those words. She turned back toward the kitchen, cleaning up the dishes, focusing her mind on the tasks that might keep her heart from breaking. The day passed with routine. Jesika washed clothes by hand, swept the floor, and tried to make the house as neat as possible. She worked tirelessly, though no one seemed to notice. Every time she rested, she imagined her father's face. A man who always said, "Remember, wealth is only meaningful if used to help others." That was what Jesika held on to, the reason she never revealed her background. In the afternoon, Ronaldo returned home. His face looked tired but still gave a smile when he saw Jesika waiting at the door. "Welcome home," Jesika greeted softly, taking his bag. Ronaldo nodded, brushing his hair back. It was a long day. Jesika wanted to ask about his office life, but Yasmin suddenly appeared, cutting off the moment. "Long day?" Yasmin scoffed. "Of course. You're the only one who works hard here. Others just sit around and act like a princess." Jesika stiffened. She didn't reply, just lowered her head. Ronaldo sighed but didn't argue this time. Dinner was eaten in silence. Yasmin kept finding small faults: too much salt in the soup, the rice too dry, the vegetables not fresh. Jesika remained patient, receiving every criticism without protest. Ronaldo kept quiet too, though sometimes he glanced at Jesika with guilt. That night, after Yasmin went to bed, Jesika sat on the porch. The sky was dark, only lit by the faint moonlight. She hugged her knees, her eyes filled with tears she had been holding back all day. Ronaldo sat beside her, rubbing his neck awkwardly. "I'm sorry about Mother. She's like that. But deep down she'll accept you." Jesika forced a small smile. "I hope so." Ronaldo held her hand. "I love you. That's what matters." Jesika leaned her head against his shoulder, finding comfort there. Yet a quiet question lingered in her heart. How long could love alone endure if she was constantly belittled in this house? The night grew colder, but Jesika stayed there, watching the stars, whispering prayers she didn't dare voice aloud. The morning began with a gentle drizzle that tapped against the roof tiles. Jesika woke earlier than usual, her body still sore from the endless chores she had done the day before. The air was damp and chilly, but the heaviness in her chest felt warmer than the weather outside. She tied her hair into a loose bun, put on a simple apron, and walked into the small kitchen. The stove had grown familiar to her, the kind that required patience before the flame caught properly. She squatted down, arranging small pieces of kindling and blowing softly until the fire grew strong. Soon, the room was filled with a faint crackle of firewood and the smell of onions frying in oil. Jesika prepared porridge that morning, thinking it would be lighter for everyone's stomach. Yasmin entered the kitchen without a word, her slippers dragging against the floor. Her sharp eyes instantly scanned every corner, as though Jesika were a maid being inspected. "You're only making porridge?" Yasmin muttered with a frown. "You think porridge can keep a man full after working all day?" Jesika stopped stirring for a moment, then answered softly, "I thought porridge would be good for the weather. But I can add side dishes. There are eggs, and I can fry some anchovies too." Yasmin crossed her arms. "Always wasting food. People like us don't need too much variety. Just rice and salted fish would be enough." Jesika nodded, her lips pressed tightly together. She finished the porridge, boiled some eggs, and arranged everything on the dining table. Ronaldo appeared soon after, his shirt neatly pressed, his hair combed, ready for work. He greeted his mother and his wife, then sat down to eat. The three of them shared breakfast together, though the atmosphere was never light. Yasmin always found a reason to complain. The porridge was too watery, the eggs overcooked, the anchovies too salty. Ronaldo tried to lighten the mood with small jokes, but Yasmin brushed them aside with scorn. Jesika, as always, smiled faintly and said nothing. After breakfast, Ronaldo left for the office. He kissed Jesika lightly on the forehead before leaving, but Yasmin's eyes followed with a sharp glare. As soon as the door closed, the silence returned, thick and heavy. Jesika collected the dishes, rinsing them carefully, but she could feel Yasmin's gaze boring into her back. "You think just because my son loves you, you can live here comfortably?" Yasmin's voice finally broke the silence. Jesika paused, her hands still in the water. I only want to do my part as a wife, Mother." Yasmin let out a dry laugh. "Wife? A real wife helps her husband, not just cooks and cleans. What do you bring into this house besides your pretty face? You don't even work. How long do you think my son can support you?" Jesika lowered her head. She wanted to say she had enough wealth to feed the household for 10 lifetimes, but she bit her tongue. Revealing her secret would only prove Yasmin right, that she didn't marry Ronaldo for love, but to hide something. She had promised herself to keep that secret safe. "I'll find a way to help more," Jesika whispered. Yasmin's eyes narrowed. We'll see. The days that followed became a repetition of the same struggles. Every morning Jesika cooked, cleaned, washed, and ironed. Her hands, once delicate, began to show small cracks and redness from soap and water. She never complained. Instead, she whispered to herself that this was part of being a wife, part of the vow she made to Ronaldo. But Yasmin never softened. She criticized Jesika's way of sweeping the floor, folding the clothes, even the way she greeted neighbors. Jesika always answered politely, but her heart grew heavier each day. One afternoon, Jesika sat on the porch peeling vegetables. A neighbor stopped by, a woman with a scarf loosely tied around her hair. She leaned against the fence, peering curiously. You're Ronaldo's wife, right? The woman asked with a half-smile. Jesika nodded politely. Yes, I'm Jesika. The woman chuckled softly. You're beautiful. Too beautiful for a simple house like this. Where are you really from? Jesika forced a smile. I'm just an ordinary person, like everyone else. The woman said, clearly unconvinced. People say you must be hiding something. No woman like you would marry into a family like this without a reason. Jessica's heart skipped, but she kept her expression calm. Love doesn't ask for reasons. The woman raised her brows, then shrugged. If you say so. She walked away, leaving Jesika staring at the street, her chest tightening with unease. Gossip had begun. That evening, when Ronaldo returned, Jesika tried to tell him about the encounter. But Ronaldo only laughed lightly, brushing it off. Neighbors are like that. Don't take it seriously. Jesika smiled faintly, but she couldn't ignore the knot in her stomach. Gossip was like wildfire. Once sparked, it spread quickly, and she could already sense Yasmin's ears were always ready to catch such flames. And she wasn't wrong. Later that night, Yasmin entered the living room where Jesika was folding clothes. People are talking, Yasmin said coldly. They say you're too good for us. They wonder why a woman like you would settle here. Do you know what that means? Jesika looked up. I don't pay attention to gossip, mother. I only care about my family here. Yasmin narrowed her eyes. Gossip always has a seed of truth. Don't think you can fool me. Jessica's chest ached. She turned her gaze back to the clothes in her hands, her fingers trembling slightly. Yasmin didn't leave right away. She stood there, glaring, as if waiting for Jesika to slip and confess something. But Jesika said nothing. When she finally went to bed that night, Jesika lay awake for hours. Ronaldo slept soundly beside her, his breathing steady, his hand resting lightly on her arm. Jesika stared at the ceiling, her mind clouded. How long could she endure this? How long before the gossip turned into something more dangerous? The sunlight streamed through the narrow window, painting faint golden lines across the wooden floor. Jesika had been awake since dawn, her body already accustomed to the rhythm of chores that seemed endless. The sound of water splashing in the bucket filled the backyard as she scrubbed Ronaldo's work shirts one by one, her fingers wrinkled from the soap. Her hands, which once only touched soft fabrics and pens in classrooms, had now grown rougher. She often pressed her palms together at night, surprised by how different they felt from just a year ago. Yet every time she looked at Ronaldo's smile, she found strength again. To her, love was worth more than comfort. After hanging the clothes on the line, Jesika sat on a small stool, catching her breath. From inside the house, she could hear Yasmin's voice scolding the television program she was watching. Jesika wiped the sweat from her forehead, took a deep breath, and stood up to continue sweeping the yard. Later, when she entered the kitchen, she noticed a small box tucked behind the rice container. It was the savings box she had secretly kept. Inside it, she placed folded bills, money she had withdrawn little by little from her own account under a different name. Ronaldo thought the savings came from her years of frugality before marriage. Jesika never corrected him. She didn't want him to know she was actually keeping him afloat with resources far beyond what he imagined. That afternoon, Ronaldo returned from work with a troubled look on his face. Jesika greeted him at the door as always, but her smile faltered when she saw his furrowed brow. What's wrong? Jesika asked softly, taking his bag. Ronaldo sighed heavily. There's an issue with one of the projects. I might have to cover a payment, or else it could affect my position. Jessica's heart tightened. How much? Ronaldo hesitated then muttered, A few million. I don't want to bother you, Jesika. I'll figure it out. Without a word, Jesika went to the bedroom. She opened her drawer, took out an envelope she had prepared, and returned to him. She placed it in his hand. Use this. Ronaldo looked at her in shock. Jess, where did you get this money? Jesika forced a small smile. I've been saving from the household allowance you give me. I don't spend much, remember? Ronaldo's eyes softened with gratitude. He hugged her tightly. You're incredible. I don't deserve you. Jesika closed her eyes against his shoulder, hiding the sting of guilt. The money wasn't from household allowance, it was from her inheritance. But she let him believe her story. If it made him feel stronger as a man, then she would carry that burden silently. The next day, Ronaldo went to work with renewed energy. He kissed Jesika on the forehead before leaving, his confidence restored. Jesika watched him go, her chest swelling with both pride and sadness. She was helping him quietly, but she knew he would never know the truth. Meanwhile, Yasmin grew increasingly suspicious. That evening, while Jesika was in the kitchen, Yasmin cornered her. Where did Ronaldo suddenly get the money to fix his office issue? Yasmin's eyes were sharp. Jesika froze for a moment, then forced herself to answer calmly. I gave him what I had saved, mother. Yasmin snorted. Saved? Don't lie to me. No housewife like you could save that much. Do you have someone else giving you money? Jessica's heart pounded. No, mother. I only managed what Ronaldo gave me carefully. Yasmin's glare didn't soften. I don't trust you. Women like you always hide something. Jesika bowed her head. She wanted to scream the truth, that she had more than enough to support the entire household, that she had sacrificed everything just to live humbly with Ronaldo. But she swallowed her voice. Silence was her shield. That night, while Ronaldo slept soundly, Jesika sat by the window, gazing at the moon. She clasped her hands together, whispering to herself, as long as he's happy, I'll endure this. Days turned into weeks. Jessica's sacrifices continued unnoticed. She paid Ronaldo's debts quietly, bought groceries with her own hidden money when Yasmin complained about shortages, and even slipped extra into Ronaldo's wallet whenever he left for work. Yet Yasmin's suspicion grew sharper. She often muttered to neighbors, I don't know where that girl gets her money. She's hiding something. Maybe she has another man out there. The whispers spread slowly through the neighborhood, crawling into ears that loved gossip. Jesika knew of it when one afternoon a neighbor smirked at her and said, Careful, Jesika. People are starting to talk. Her chest tightened, but she remained calm, replying only with a faint smile. She didn't want to add fuel to the fire. But every night, she cried quietly, burying her face into the pillow so Ronaldo wouldn't hear. Her love was silent, her sacrifices invisible. Yet she endured, believing that one day, truth would shine through. The days passed with routines that seemed ordinary on the surface, yet Jesika could feel a subtle tension tightening in every corner of the house. Morning after morning, she still woke early, preparing breakfast, tidying the living room, sweeping the yard. But beneath the simple rhythm of her chores, an invisible storm was gathering. It began with small whispers at the market. Jesika often went there alone, carrying a basket to buy vegetables and spices. At first, the sellers greeted her kindly, impressed by her polite speech and gentle demeanor. But lately, she noticed certain glances, sideways, curious, sometimes even mocking. One morning, as she chose chilies, she overheard two women whispering behind her back. That's the one, Ronaldo's wife, one muttered. Yes, the other replied, lowering her voice but not enough. Beautiful, too beautiful for a house like that. I heard she often goes out secretly. Who knows where she gets the money? Jessica's fingers stiffened as she picked the chilies. Her heart pounded, but she pretended not to hear. She paid the seller quickly, forced a smile, and walked away, though the whispers followed her until she turned the corner. When she returned home, she placed the groceries on the table, her hands trembling slightly. Yasmin, who sat there shelling beans, immediately noticed. What's wrong with you? Yasmin asked sharply. Jesika shook her head. Nothing. Mother. Just tired. Yasmin snorted. Of course you're tired. Walking around outside all day. Who knows what you're really doing? Jesika froze, her chest tightening. I only went to the market. Humph, Yasmin muttered, clearly unconvinced. That evening, Ronaldo came home late. Jesika had kept dinner warm, waiting for him with quiet patience. When he finally arrived, his face looked weary. He slumped into the chair, loosening his tie. "Long day?" Jesika asked softly, serving him rice. Ronaldo nodded, rubbing his temples. "Work is tough. And people talk, Jess." Jessica's hands paused. "Talk." Ronaldo hesitated, then sighed. "Some colleagues said they saw you around town more than usual. They hinted things." Jessica's heart sank. "I only go to the market, Naldo. And sometimes to the pharmacy when mother needs medicine." "I know," Ronaldo said quickly. "I believe you. But you know how people are. They gossip. And mother hears everything too." Jesika lowered her gaze. "Do you doubt me?" Ronaldo reached across the table, taking her hand. "No. I love you. I trust you. But you need to be careful. Even small things can turn into big talk." Jesika forced a small smile, though inside, a shadow had already crept into her heart. Love and trust were still there, but doubt had begun to seep through the cracks. The next few days only worsened matters. Yasmin seemed more vigilant than ever. Whenever Jesika left the house, Yasmin would ask where she was going, how long, with whom. Even when Jesika explained patiently, Yasmin's eyes always looked unconvinced. One afternoon, Jesika walked to the small clinic to buy medicine for Yasmin's headaches. On her way back, she passed a cafe where a man she vaguely recognized from the neighborhood waved at her. She gave a polite nod and continued walking, not stopping even for a second. Yet unfortunately, a pair of eyes saw the gesture and twisted it into something else. By the evening, the rumor had already reached Yasmin. "I heard you were seen near the cafe today," Yasmin accused as soon as Jesika stepped inside. "With a man?" Jesika gasped. "No, mother. I only bought medicine. A neighbor greeted me, that's all." "Lies." Yasmin slammed her hand on the table. "You think I'm blind? People don't gossip for no reason." Jessica's eyes welled with tears. "Please believe me. I would never betray Ronaldo." Ronaldo, who had just entered, froze at the sight of his mother's anger and his wife's tears. "What's going on? Your wife is fooling around outside," Yasmin shouted. Ronaldo's face paled. He turned to Jesika. "Is that true?" Jessica's voice broke. "No, Naldo. I swear I did nothing wrong." The silence that followed was suffocating. Ronaldo clenched his fists, torn between his mother's words and his wife's plea. Finally he muttered, "Mother, please, don't jump to conclusions." But his voice lacked the firmness Jesika longed to hear. He didn't defend her fully. He left the room in silence, leaving Jesika trembling and Yasmin smirking in grim satisfaction. That night, Jesika lay awake beside Ronaldo, staring at the ceiling. He turned his back to her, his breathing uneven. She wanted to touch him, to reassure him, but her hand froze midair. Doubt had built a wall between them. Jesika whispered in the darkness, "How much longer can I endure this storm?" The morning sun filtered through the thin curtains of Jessica's room, casting pale golden stripes across the bed. She had barely slept. Her eyes were swollen from crying through the night, her heart still aching from the silence that had separated her from Ronaldo. He had turned away from her, as if the warmth of their bond had been smothered by unseen hands. Jesika rose quietly, careful not to wake him. She dressed, tied her hair neatly, and went to the kitchen to prepare breakfast. Her hands moved automatically, washing rice, slicing vegetables, frying eggs, yet her thoughts drifted endlessly. Every sound of gossip, every accusing glance, every harsh word from Yasmin replayed in her mind like a relentless echo. Yasmin entered the kitchen soon after, her steps heavy, her expression already sour. She sniffed the air, then scoffed. "Still acting like a good wife, are you? Cooking, cleaning, as if that could hide what you've done outside." Jessica's hand stilled on the pan handle. "Mother, please. I've done nothing wrong. Must I prove my innocence every day?" "Of course you must," Yasmin retorted sharply. "Because no decent woman invites gossip as you do. People aren't blind, Jesika. They see." Jesika clenched her jaw, swallowing her reply. If she argued, Yasmin would only twist her words. If she stayed silent, it would be taken as guilt. She felt trapped in a circle with no way out. When Ronaldo finally came down for breakfast, the atmosphere was tense. Jesika served him rice, fish, and sambal with quiet care. Yasmin sat at the table too, arms crossed, eyes burning with judgment. Ronaldo ate without speaking much. Jesika tried to catch his gaze, but he avoided her eyes, focusing on his plate instead. The silence between them hurt more than any insult. After the meal, Yasmin began again. "Son, you must open your eyes. Don't be blinded by her pretty face. People talk about her for a reason. You can't ignore it forever." "Mother, enough," Ronaldo said tiredly. "I've heard enough gossip. I need peace at home." "Peace?" Yasmin snapped. "There can be no peace when betrayal lurks under your roof." Jesika gasped softly. "Please, Mother. I swear I've never betrayed him." Yasmin slammed her fist on the table. "Swear all you like. A liar's oath means nothing." The words pierced Jessica's heart like daggers. She looked to Ronaldo, desperate for him to defend her, to silence his mother's cruelty. But Ronaldo remained still, torn, his lips pressed into a thin line. His silence spoke volumes. Jesika excused herself quickly, retreating to her room where she collapsed on the floor, tears spilling freely. The walls seemed to close in around her. She thought of her family far away, of the simple life she had left behind, of the love she had clung to when she married Ronaldo. Was it all slipping away now, piece by piece? That afternoon, needing to clear her head, Jesika stepped outside. She walked aimlessly through the small streets, her shawl pulled tightly around her shoulders. Every step felt heavy, every face she passed seemed to whisper. She wanted to scream her truth, to defend her name, but who would believe her? At the corner of the street, she stopped by a tiny shop to buy flour and sugar. The shopkeeper, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes, greeted her warmly. "Jesika, you look pale. Are you all right?" Jesika forced a smile. "I'm fine, boo. Just tired." The woman leaned closer. "Don't mind the gossip. People will always talk. What matters is your heart." Jessica's eyes stung. She murmured thanks, clutching the groceries to her chest like a lifeline. For a brief moment, she felt seen, not as a villain, not as a liar, but as herself. But when she returned home, Yasmin was waiting at the door, arms akimbo. "Where have you been?" Jesika held up the bag. "I only went to the shop. We were running out of flour." Yasmin snatched the bag from her hands, rifling through it as if to find proof of deceit. "Always an excuse. Always out. Do you think I don't know what you're doing?" Jesika trembled. "Mother, enough. I beg you. Don't accuse me of things I haven't done." "Beg all you want," Yasmin hissed. "But your mask will fall soon. And when it does, my son will see the truth." That night, Jesika sat alone on the veranda, watching the stars flicker faintly in the dark sky. She hugged her knees, whispering prayers under her breath. She prayed for strength, for clarity, for the love that once held her and Ronaldo together to withstand the poison of suspicion. Yet deep inside, she feared the fracture had already begun. The days in the household grew heavier, as though each sunrise carried with it another layer of suffocating air. Jesika woke up earlier than everyone else, her body moving out of habit, though her heart felt as if it had been bruised beyond repair. The sound of the rooster crowing and the faint call to prayer in the distance always reminded her of mornings back at her parents' home. Mornings filled with warmth, not suspicion. She tried to hold on to those memories as she prepared the kitchen for breakfast. Yet every clang of a pan, every shuffle of her feet on the tiled floor seemed to echo too loudly in the empty house. Yasmin soon appeared, her face tight, lips already pressed into a line of disapproval. Without a word, she sat down, watching Jessica's movements. The silence was worse than shouting. It was sharp, accusing, full of unspoken venom. Jesika finally spoke, her voice gentle but trembling. "Mother, would you like tea or coffee this morning?" "Coffee," Yasmin replied curtly. Then after a pause, she added coldly, "Make sure it's strong. I need something to wash away the filth of this house." Jessica's hand stilled over the kettle, her throat tightening. She didn't answer, only continued with the task, knowing any response would invite further cruelty. When Ronaldo came downstairs, Jesika tried once more to bridge the growing chasm between them. She placed his breakfast on the table, her eyes seeking his. I made your favorite this morning, she whispered. Ronaldo glanced at the plate, then at her. For a fleeting moment, there was softness in his eyes, as though he remembered the woman he had once vowed to protect. But the weight of rumors, of Yasmin's whispers, pressed heavier on his mind. He looked away, muttering a flat, "Thanks." Jesika's heart clenched. That single word, spoken without warmth, hurt more than an outright insult. As they ate, Yasmin began again, her voice dripping with malice. "Son, last night I heard more talk from the neighbors. They say Jesika has been seen laughing too freely with other men at the market. Do you think a faithful wife behaves that way?" Jesika gasped, her spoon clattering against the plate. "That's a lie. I only spoke to the shopkeeper." "Enough," Yasmin snapped. "Do you think I'm deaf? Do you think the whole neighborhood is blind? Everyone can see what you are." Jesika turned desperately to Ronaldo. "Please believe me." "I would never." But Ronaldo's eyes were clouded, torn between his wife and his mother. He said nothing. His silence, once again, was more painful than any accusation. Jesika excused herself from the table before tears could spill. She ran to the small garden outside, where the jasmine flowers bloomed quietly, their scent sweet but tinged with sorrow. She sank onto the bench, her hands covering her face. The world felt cruel, twisted, as though every breath she took was branded as guilt. Later that afternoon, Yasmin invited two of her close friends over. Jesika overheard them from the kitchen, their voices low but cutting like blades. "Poor Ronaldo," one of the women whispered. "Imagine having a wife like that. No wonder people talk." "Jesika always looked suspicious to me," the other replied. "Pretty face, but who knows what she does behind closed doors." Jessica's blood ran cold. She wanted to burst into the room, to defend herself, to shout her truth. But she stayed hidden, trembling, tears burning her eyes. If she confronted them, Yasmin would only twist it further, accuse her of disrespect. Instead, Jesika sat quietly by the stove, staring at the boiling pot, her heart screaming in silence. That night, when the guests had gone, she approached Ronaldo in their room. Her voice was raw, almost breaking. "Do you really believe them? Do you think I could betray you?" Ronaldo hesitated, his jaw tightening. "Jesika, I don't know what to think anymore. The rumors keep growing. Everywhere I go, people whisper." Jesika reached for his hand, her eyes glistening. "Look at me. Trust what you see in my eyes, not what you hear outside. I have only ever loved you." Ronaldo looked at her then, and for a moment his heart wavered. He wanted to believe her, to cling to the love they once shared. But Yasmin's voice lingered in his head, poisoning him. He pulled his hand away slowly. "I need time." Jesika felt her world collapse at those words. Time. It sounded like distance. It sounded like goodbye. She lay awake long into the night, staring at the ceiling, her tears soaking the pillow. Each sob was muffled, for she no longer had the strength to cry aloud. The morning air hung heavy with tension. Jesika stood at the sink, washing dishes from breakfast, her hands moving slowly as though weighed down by invisible chains. The clatter of porcelain seemed louder than usual in the suffocating silence. Ronaldo had already left for work without a word more than a flat, "I'll be late tonight." Jesika watched him go with aching eyes, wondering if he even noticed how hollow her smile had become. Yasmin remained at the dining table, sipping her coffee leisurely, as though she had all the time in the world to continue her venomous watch. Finally, Yasmin spoke. "Do you know what I heard again this morning?" Jesika froze, bracing herself. "One of the neighbors said they saw you standing outside the shop yesterday, laughing. With a man." Yasmin's lips curled into a sneer. "Shameless." Jesika turned, her eyes wide with disbelief. "That was the shopkeeper. I only asked about flour. Must I never speak to anyone again?" "You admit it then," Yasmin said, voice sharp like a blade. "Always talking to men. Always finding excuses." Jessica's breath hitched. "Mother, please." "I've done nothing wrong. Don't call me mother. You've disgraced this house enough." The words landed like a slap. Jesika turned back to the sink, gripping the edge with trembling fingers. Every accusation felt like a stone laid on her chest, pressing harder, until she could scarcely breathe. That afternoon, Yasmin's bitterness reached a new height. When Jesika brought laundry to the yard to dry, Yasmin followed, her voice carrying loud enough for the neighbors to hear. "This woman has no shame," she said, waving her hands dramatically. "She pretends to be innocent, but everyone knows she's rotten. Poor my son, blinded by her lies." Jessica's face flushed crimson as she realized curtains twitched in nearby houses, eyes peering out. She wanted to scream back, to defend herself, but her voice stuck in her throat. Any protest would sound like guilt. So she stood still, silent, the tears threatening to spill but stubbornly held back. When evening came, Ronaldo returned home. Jesika rushed to meet him, her heart desperate. "Please listen to me," she whispered, tugging gently at his sleeve before he could enter the living room. "I can't endure this anymore. You have to trust me." Ronaldo glanced at her, his expression unreadable. "Jesika, I told you I need time." "Time for what?" Her voice cracked. "Time to let their lies destroy us? Time to let your mother turn you against me?" Ronaldo sighed heavily, pulling away. "Stop, Jesika. I'm tired. Tired." The word cut her deeper than anger ever could. She stepped back, watching as he walked past her into the house. The space between them felt like a canyon, growing wider each day. That night, as Jesika folded laundry in the dimly lit room, Yasmin barged in. Her face was twisted with fury. "I warned you, but you didn't listen. I told you your mask would fall, and now it has." Jesika looked up in shock. "What do you mean?" Yasmin tossed a small piece of paper onto the bed. Jesika picked it up with trembling hands. It was a note, scribbled, and signed, malicious. "I saw Jesika with another man again. Be careful. She cannot be trusted." Jessica's stomach churned. "This is a lie. Who would write such a thing? Does it matter?" Yasmin spat. "The whole neighborhood sees what you are. And soon my son will see too." Jesika clutched the paper, her hands shaking. She wanted to rip it apart, but she knew Yasmin would only twist that against her too. The walls were closing in tighter, her world shrinking, her name dragged deeper into the mud. That night, when Ronaldo saw the note, his face darkened. "Jesika, is this true?" Tears spilled down her cheeks. "No. I swear to you, it's not. It's just another cruel trick." Ronaldo's jaw clenched. He didn't answer. He turned away, leaving Jesika sobbing on the bed, her cries echoing into the night. The storm broke not with thunder, but with whispers that slithered through the neighborhood like smoke. Jesika felt it each time she stepped outside. The shifting gazes, the abrupt silences when she walked past, the cruel smirks barely hidden behind fans and shawls. By now, it seemed every corner carried her name like a curse. Inside the house, Yasmin wielded those whispers as weapons. Morning, afternoon, and night, her voice poisoned the air. Jesika endured it all in silence, her spirit thinning like paper left too long in the rain. One evening, as Jesika was preparing dinner, Yasmin barged into the kitchen with eyes burning. "Do you know what I heard today?" Jesika didn't look up. Her hands trembled as she stirred the soup. "They say you were seen near the river, meeting someone in secret. Another man. Do you deny it?" Jesika spun around, ladle dripping broth onto the floor. "That's not true. I haven't even been near the river for weeks." "Liar." Yasmin's voice rose high enough to shake the walls. "You think I'll let you continue disgracing this family? Not under my roof." Jessica's chest tightened. "Please don't do this. I've been faithful. I've done everything for this home." But Yasmin wasn't listening. She stormed out, calling for Ronaldo. When he appeared, Jessica's heart raced. She needed him to believe, to shield her from the storm. But Yasmin spoke first, words tumbling fast, sharp as knives. "Ronaldo, enough is enough. This woman has dragged our family name into the mud. Everyone knows what she's been doing behind your back. Are you going to let her stay here and shame you further?" Jesika stepped forward, tears welling. "Ronaldo, don't believe this. Please. Look at me." Ronaldo's face was tight, his eyes clouded with conflict. He looked from his mother to his wife, torn between blood and love. "Jesika." Her name on his lips was both hope and despair. But Yasmin pressed harder. "If you don't act now, you'll be the laughingstock of the entire town." Do you want that? Do you want people to spit on your name? Jesika reached for him. Ronaldo, I beg you, listen to your heart, not to lies. Ronaldo pulled away, his shoulders sagging. Jesika, maybe it's best if you leave for now. Until things calm down. The world tilted. Jesika staggered back as if struck. Leave? You want me to leave my own home? It's not forever, Ronaldo said quickly, though his voice wavered. Just until the rumors die down. For your sake, and mine. Yasmin smirked in triumph. Jessica's tears spilled freely now. After everything I've done, after all the sacrifices, I am the one cast out? Ronaldo couldn't meet her eyes. Please, Jesika. Don't make this harder. Yasmin stepped closer, her voice sharp. Pack your things. Tonight. Jessica's body shook as she stumbled back to their room. Each step felt heavier than stone, her heart breaking with every breath. She opened the wardrobe with trembling hands, pulling out the clothes she had so carefully folded, the ones she once dreamed of wearing in a happy life with Ronaldo. The memories flooded her. Laughter shared, meals cooked together, whispered promises under the stars. All of it now felt like a cruel joke. As she placed her belongings into a worn suitcase, her tears blurred her vision. The sound of Yasmin's satisfied muttering echoed faintly down the hall. When Jesika emerged with her bag, the living room was silent except for the ticking clock. Yasmin stood tall, victorious. Ronaldo sat on the sofa, his face pale, his hands clenched. He didn't look up. Jesika paused at the doorway, her voice trembling. Remember this moment. Ronaldo. Remember that when I needed you most, you turned away. Her words hung in the air like shattered glass. Then she stepped out into the night, the door closing behind her with a hollow thud that seemed to echo into eternity. The streets were dark, empty, cold. Jesika walked slowly, clutching the suitcase as though it were the last piece of herself. Her tears fell freely now, each drop a fragment of the life she thought she had. She had nowhere to go. No hand to reach for. No roof to claim as her own. But as the night air chilled her bones, somewhere deep inside, a small flame flickered, the faintest spark of strength, waiting for its time. The night air was sharp against Jessica's skin as she dragged her suitcase along the uneven road. The sound of the wheels bumping over cracks echoed like a mournful drumbeat in the emptiness. Every step carried the weight of rejection, betrayal, and loss. She glanced back once at the house she had poured her heart into, its windows glowing warmly under the night sky, warmth she was no longer welcome to. Jessica's chest tightened. She whispered to herself, I am nothing to them now. The words stung, but they also carved a clarity she had never known before. She wandered until her legs trembled with exhaustion, finally collapsing on a small wooden bench under a street lamp. The pale light washed over her tear-streaked face, her hands clutching the suitcase like a lifeline. People passed by, some glancing, others whispering, but no one stopped to ask. The whispers cut deep. Isn't that Ronaldo's wife? I heard she was caught cheating. Poor man betrayed like that. Jesika closed her eyes, letting the venom drip into her ears, into her heart. But instead of breaking further, something within her began to harden. For days, she had begged to be believed, begged for a voice in a house where her truth was always drowned out. And now, thrown into the cold night, she realized begging had brought her nothing but humiliation. Her tears dried slowly, leaving only the raw sting in her eyes. She looked up at the night sky, stars faintly scattered like scattered hopes. Somewhere, deep within, a voice whispered, "This is not the end. Not for me." The following morning, Jesika dragged herself to a small guest house on the outskirts of town. The owner, a kind older woman, took pity on her appearance and offered her a small room for a modest price. Jesika thanked her, bowing her head low to hide the shame that still clung to her. Inside the room, Jesika sat on the narrow bed, staring at the peeling walls. The silence pressed down, but unlike Yasmin's house, it was not poisoned silence. Here she could breathe. Her mind wandered to Ronaldo. Did he miss her already? Was he regretting letting her go? Or was he still under Yasmin's shadow, convincing himself she deserved this exile? The thoughts twisted in her chest, but alongside the ache was a growing fire. For the first time, she asked herself, why am I the one who must carry the burden of their lies? Why must I be silent while they tear me apart? On the third day, Jesika ventured out. She walked through the bustling market, not as the shamed wife whispered about in corners, but as a woman observing quietly. She listened to the merchants haggling, the children laughing, the women gossiping. Her heart still bled at every mention of her name, but she forced herself to stand tall, to meet the stares without flinching. By chance, she overheard two men talking near a fruit stall. "Did you hear about the company boss's heir? No one knows who it is. They say the heir has been living quietly, observing everything." Jesika's breath caught. She knew the company well. It was the very place where Ronaldo worked, the foundation of their household's pride. Few knew the truth. She was that heir. Her parents, before passing, had left her the shares, the documents, the power. She had kept it hidden, wanting to live simply, wanting her marriage to be built on love, not wealth. Now, sitting in the shadow of her disgrace, Jesika realized the irony. All this time, Yasmin had mocked her as worthless, while she held in her hands the key to everything Yasmin worshipped. Jesika clenched her fists, the fire inside her blazing brighter. For so long, she had bent under the weight of their hatred. But perhaps it was time to stand, to use the strength she had buried. She returned to her room that night, unlocking the small suitcase that carried not only clothes but papers, documents that bore her name, her inheritance, her power. She spread them across the bed, the bold letters of ownership gleaming under the dim light. Her heart pounded as she whispered to herself, "They wanted me gone. They wanted me broken. But I will rise, and when I do, they will regret every cruelty, every lie." For the first time in weeks, Jesika slept without tears. The sun was just rising, its golden rays spilling across the city like molten fire, when Jesika stood before the mirror in her hotel suite. Weeks had passed since that night she was cast out like nothing, weeks of silence, planning, and quiet observation. The woman staring back at her now was not the same one who had begged and wept at Yasmin's feet, nor the one Ronaldo had discarded with such ease. Her eyes burned with clarity. Her posture radiated steel. The black tailored suit she wore hugged her form with quiet elegance, her hijab pinned neatly, a soft cream color that contrasted the strength in her gaze. On the desk behind her lay a stack of documents, each one stamped with authority. At the very top was a single sheet of paper that bore Yasmin's name, the official termination letter. Jesika inhaled deeply, steadying her pulse. "Today," she whispered to her reflection, "they will know who I truly am." The boardroom of the city's largest company was already buzzing with tension when Jesika arrived. Men in dark suits, women with sharp eyes, assistants whispering updates, everyone seemed on edge. The company had been struggling quietly for months, whispers of corruption and mismanagement swirling, and no one knew who the mysterious majority shareholder truly was. Ronaldo sat near the center, shoulders square but face drawn. He looked older than Jesika remembered, exhaustion written in the lines around his eyes. At his side, Yasmin sat smugly, dressed in a striking red dress that screamed confidence. She tapped her manicured nails on the table, whispering something into Ronaldo's ear that made his jaw tighten. The room fell silent as the doors opened. Jesika stepped inside, her heels clicking against the polished floor. Murmurs erupted instantly. "Who is she? Isn't that Jesika?" Ronaldo's head snapped up. His eyes widened, disbelief flooding them. "Jesika?" Yasmin's smile faltered, then hardened. She leaned forward, voice sharp. "What is she doing here? This is a restricted meeting." "Guards." Jesika raised a hand, calm and steady. "Sit down, Yasmin. This room belongs to me." Gasps echoed. The board members looked from Jesika to Yasmin, confusion etched on their faces. The chairman, an older man with silver hair, cleared his throat. "And you are?" Jesika stepped to the head of the table, placing her documents down with deliberate care. Her voice was clear, unwavering. "Jesika Andira, legal majority shareholder of this company. Daughter of the late Surya Andira. My father built this empire, and I am here to reclaim it." The silence that followed was deafening. Ronaldo stood abruptly, his face pale. That's impossible. Jesika, what are you saying?" Jesika met his gaze without flinching. "I'm saying that while you were busy believing lies and letting Yasmin spit venom into your ears, I was holding the very foundation of everything you thought was yours. The company you bragged about working for, the position you thought gave you pride, it all belonged to me." Murmurs swelled like a rising tide. Some board members exchanged looks of relief, others of awe. A few even nodded, as though long awaiting this reveal. Yasmin's face twisted with disbelief. You're lying. If you were the owner, why would you ever live like some poor housewife? Why would you beg? Why would you let me? Because I believed in love, Jesika cut in, her voice laced with steel. I thought humility, kindness and sincerity were worth more than wealth and titles. I wanted a marriage built on trust, not power. But you showed me how wrong I was. Her words struck like thunder. Ronaldo's shoulders sagged as if the weight of her truth pressed into his very bones. The chairman stood, bowing slightly toward Jesika. Madam Jesika, your documents are in perfect order. Effective immediately, your authority will be recognized. Jesika nodded once, her eyes never leaving Yasmin. Good. Then let my first order be clear. Yasmin's contract, along with every position she has been granted, is hereby terminated. Effective now. The red drained from Yasmin's cheeks. She shot to her feet, her voice trembling with rage. You can't do this. Ronaldo, say something. Stop her. Ronaldo's lips parted, but no words came. His hands trembled on the table, his eyes locked on Jesika. Haunted, guilty, broken. Jesika tilted her head, her tone cold. Do you remember, Yasmin, the night you laughed as I begged not to be cast out? Do you remember the way you spat on my face, told me I was nothing, while Ronaldo sat silent beside you? I do. And now, so will you. Security entered the room at her signal. Two men stepped toward Yasmin, firm but polite. Miss, please leave. Yasmin shrieked, thrashing. No. You can't. Ronaldo, help me. She's nothing. She's. Her voice was cut off as she was escorted out, her screams echoing down the corridor like a ghost clinging to the last scraps of power. The boardroom fell silent again. Jesika turned slowly toward Ronaldo. For a moment, the years they had shared flickered in her memory. The laughter, the dreams, the vows. Then the betrayal. Ronaldo's lips quivered. Jesika. I didn't know. I didn't. Jesika raised her hand sharply. You chose not to know. You chose silence when I needed you most. You chose her lies over my truth. And now you must live with what you chose. Tears filled his eyes, but Jessica's heart did not stir. It had been shattered once, and from those pieces, she had built armor. She straightened, her voice firm as she addressed the board. This company will be rebuilt. Not on corruption, not on deceit, but on strength and honor. Anyone who cannot accept that may leave now. No one moved. Instead, heads bowed in respect. Jesika gathered her documents, her step steady as she left the room. Behind her, Ronaldo collapsed into his chair, face buried in his hands, while Yasmin's cries still echoed faintly through the halls. Outside, the sun shone brighter, bathing Jesika in light as she walked toward her car. She did not look back. She did not need to. The reckoning had come, and it was only the beginning. The year had turned, seasons shifting, yet the memory of that fateful boardroom day lingered in whispers across the city. Jessica's name, once spoken with disdain by in-laws who called her weak, was now etched in power across financial papers, magazines, and headlines. Jesika Andira, the silent heir who rose. But behind the headlines lay a quieter story. A woman who had rebuilt her soul from ashes, who had learned that betrayal could be the sharpest teacher, and who now carried herself with both elegance and fire. It was a crisp morning when Jesika stepped out of her car at the orphanage she had quietly funded for months. Children's laughter filled the air as little feet ran to greet her. She bent down, scooping a girl with braided hair into her arms, smiling genuinely. "Did you finish the book I gave you?" she asked softly. The girl nodded eagerly. "I did. Will you bring another one, Jesika?" Jesika chuckled, brushing the girl's cheek. "Of course. Next time I'll bring two." Her life had shifted. Boardrooms and power were part of her days, but her heart found peace here, among those who reminded her of innocence, of beginnings untouched by malice. She had discovered a balance, to lead with authority, but also to give where the world had once taken from her. Far from her light, Ronaldo wandered in shadows. His career had crumbled after Jessica's reveal. His credibility reduced to dust. Once admired as an ambitious executive, he now struggled to find footing in a city that no longer respected him. He lived in a small rented flat, the silence of its walls suffocating. At night, he often stared at the empty chair across his dining table, where Jesika once sat, laughing softly as they dreamed of the future. His regret was endless, gnawing at his soul. He tried to reach her once, letters left unanswered, calls blocked. Jesika had chosen silence, and in that silence, he heard his condemnation. He began to understand that betrayal is not always loud. Sometimes, it is quiet neglect, the kind that festers until love dies. Yasmin's fall was harsher. Stripped of position, shunned by polite society, she drifted from one wealthy patron to another, each one casting her aside once her arrogance became unbearable. Rumors spread of her debts, her desperate schemes, her once proud figure now reduced to begging for attention in places she had once scorned. One evening, she stood outside the company's gleaming headquarters, staring up at the illuminated name, Andira Corporation. Her fists clenched as the cold wind bit her cheeks. She spat curses under her breath, but in her heart, she knew, Jesika had won. And Yasmin would never rise again. Jesika, meanwhile, found new light where she least expected it. At one of the charity galas she hosted, she met Adrian, a young architect with sharp ideas and a humility that reminded her of what she had once longed for. Unlike others who bowed before her wealth, Adrian spoke to her as though she were simply Jesika, the woman, not the heir. Their conversations flowed easily, filled not with flattery but with visions, laughter, and dreams. He admired her strength, but more than that, he respected her wounds, never pressing where scars still lay tender. In his presence, Jesika felt something she thought lost forever. Not the naivety of her old love, but the possibility of new beginnings, born from wisdom and choice. One late afternoon, Jesika stood on the balcony of her penthouse, the city skyline stretching endlessly before her. The sun dipped low, painting the sky in hues of crimson and gold. Adrian joined her, placing a quiet hand beside hers on the railing. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked softly. Jessica's gaze lingered on the horizon. Memories of tears, betrayal, exile, all passed like clouds. She inhaled, her chest rising with both strength and serenity. "No," she said finally. "Regret is for those who stay broken. I chose to rise. And because of that, I am free." Adrian smiled faintly, his eyes warm. "Then perhaps, Jesika, this is only the beginning." Jesika turned, her lips curving into a rare, genuine smile. She felt the truth of his words settle into her bones. The beginning, not of power or revenge, but of a life reclaimed, rewritten on her own terms. Behind her, the city pulsed with life. Below her, those who once mocked her now struggled in the shadows. Ahead of her, the future stretched wide, open, waiting. And Jesika, the woman once cast out, was ready to walk it, with fire in her heart and peace in her soul.